You've likely been working your butt off, possibly even for years, to earn that promotion, earn that raise, and you're still not where you want to be. I want to share a few things with you that are going to enlighten you as to some of the challenges that you're likely facing, and 5 proven steps that I've actually personally taken in my career that have allowed me to get promoted year after year. And I really want to share them with you because I do feel it's an uphill battle for women in the workforce to earn the promotion and the raises that they are due and deserve. So take the time to watch this video, put the steps into practice, and I almost all but guarantee that you will earn that raise or promotion. Although there are several caveats that I'm going to throw in at the end of the video that I want you to really pay attention to. If any of these apply to your situation, I would highly encourage you not to waste your time. Just find other opportunities, connect with your network, find other ways to be at a company that is actually going to support the growth that you deserve. So first, I want to talk about some research that has been done that is just mind-blowing around the challenges that women face. I won't bore you with all the details about the researchers and where they did their research, all of that. You can definitely look into that if you'd like. I will focus on the staggering information that will help you understand what you're truly up against in the corporate environment. So first, I want to talk about the fact that women are actually promoted when they prove themselves versus men who are promoted based on their potential. So that means we have that much more of a mountain to climb in order to justify that we are deserving of a promotion versus men of the same ability, background, all that information being equal. Men are just generally promoted more on potential than women are. The other thing that's really interesting is a study around how in reviews, women outperformed men, and at the same time, men were rated as higher potential, even though these women are outperforming men. So in this study, that is also associated in terms of high potential with the likelihood of being promoted and getting raises. So that is just mind-blowing, right? The fact that maybe it's not mind-blowing, maybe you already feel this, you experience this. The other thing is men are more likely to receive those early promotions to managers than women. There was a study of X number of men and women, and for every 100 men who were promoted, I believe somewhere around 93 women were promoted to manager. One thing that you've probably also experienced is that feedback very often for women is actually associated with personality much more often than any kind of business-related metrics. It's often pretty vague and it's not as actionable as the feedback that men receive. So that's really important for you to consider, and I'll dig into that a little bit later as well. And then the thing that just kind of blew my mind is that there was another study around resumes that were exactly the same. And the thing that was different was they changed the name of the person on the resume from a female to a male, and men were more likely to be considered for roles given the exact same experience just because the name indicated that it was a man. So if you're not kind of freaking out, like, what the F is going on? Like, how are we supposed to overcome all these obstacles? That is exactly why I'm creating this video. I've experienced this in my own career. I worked in leadership roles for over 15 years in corporate. I have led several different teams. I've even grown a team from 50 to nearly 200. I've had a ton of responsibility, and I still faced a lot of these challenges and gender biases that are very pernicious and common in the corporate environment, but not enough people really talk about it. And certainly we're not really at a point where a lot of companies are addressing it fairly or equally. For instance, when they are considering resumes to remove the name from the resume when they're giving it to the hiring manager, most companies are not doing that. So even though the research is out there, companies are definitely not taking this into consideration or making changes to their practices is to eliminate or at least decrease some of the gender biases that you face. So, this is a system that I personally just developed given the challenges that I experienced on my own. So I've had the opportunity to be promoted every single year in certain companies that I worked with, earning those raises and promotions very quickly, despite some of the challenges that I'm describing to you that we all face as women. And I want to share that with you. And like I said, at the end, I'll share some caveats. If you notice any of these caveats in terms of your experience at your work, I would highly encourage you not to waste your time. So more on that later. The very first step that I would encourage you to do is really understanding, knowing your audience and environment. And what I mean by that is, who is the person that is going to ultimately make the decision about your promotion or raise? Is it a committee decision? Is it that you have a single person who's in charge of the decision, but they really have to get buy-in from this other person? Maybe it's 2 levels above you, maybe it's 3. Whatever that circumstance is, as much as you can, try to figure out and identify who's going to be making this decision and who needs to be bought in on this decision. The other thing is understanding the factors and circumstances. Is it going to be budgetary? Is it going to be based on how your department is doing? What are the factors that will impact whether or not you're going to be eligible as that individual for that raise or promotion? So really understanding the environment that you're in. Does your HR function have certain requirements around different roles and the tenure that you need to have within a role before you're considered for promotion to that next level? What are those things that are really important for you to understand so you know exactly what you're dealing with? You don't want to be guessing, what is it that is going to help me get to that next level? You want to understand exactly what is going to impact that decision. Going into the conversations that we're going to be talking about, it's really important for you to have. So, if you want to figure out how you can prepare for some of the conversations that I'm talking about, any kind of challenging conversation where you're asking for what you want, need, or deserve, I will link to a video that I created with 4 steps that you can use to prepare for those conversations, especially if you feel more anxious or just dread those kinds of conversations. This will give you the tools that you need to confidently go into that conversation and, again, ask for what you need, want, or deserve. The next step in terms of you all but guaranteeing that you will get a promotion or raise is asking for actionable feedback and exactly what it takes for you to get to that next role or level, or earning a raise within the role that you're in right now. Make sure that you're asking for that, not just within the review cycle, as much as possible when you have projects that you're assigned and if you're taking anything on. Ask for clarity about exactly what the expectation is. It's really important because I've seen that managers struggle with this, of figuring out, how do I explicitly explain what I expect without being overly guidant, that's not a word, overly guiding the situation, or being labeled as a micromanager because you're getting too involved. So most managers are not very clear about exactly what they expect you to do. So as much as you can, find out what that expectation is. What does success look like? What does it measure out to? What exactly is your manager going to be looking for, in addition to just generally how you're doing? I would highly encourage you, at least on a quarterly basis, to have a more in-depth check-in with your manager about your overall performance so you can get more explicit feedback. Ask about the areas in which you're unsure or want more information. Be careful not to have it go into that space that I described often gets involved in reviews and feedback, which is personality and vague kind of responses around how you're doing. Ask for really explicit feedback, and this is an opportunity also for you to give your manager a heads up about what you're looking for. I wouldn't go into a conversation and be like, I would like to talk about this, and you catch them off guard and they haven't prepared for that. Give them an opportunity to really come in thoughtfully and give you the feedback that you deserve so you can work towards meeting those expectations and moving towards your goals. The third step is really important and sometimes very uncomfortable for most of us, which is sharing your successes publicly. It's not about bragging about how you're doing, but understand that with the complexities of organizations and companies, that your successes, what you accomplish with either just yourself or with your team, not everyone is going to know that. And the wider the audience of who really understands how you're contributing value to the organization, it can be both qualitative and quantitative. It's important to do this. The way that I did this was through monthly emails that I sent out company-wide at one of my companies, but you can send it to the department. You can send it just based on what role you have, what size the company is. If you're working at a 30,000 person company, I wouldn't necessarily go that far as just sending it to everyone across the board. You have to gauge what is the right audience for me to start publicly sharing my successes. And you can do a couple different things with that. Share on a monthly basis, what is it that your team has worked on and completed? What is the impact of the work that you completed on the company? The more tangible, the more numeric it is, or quantitative it is, the more impactful that will be as well. But sometimes that is hard to come by. So even projects you've completed that you won't know the impact until like 3 to 6 months to even a year down the line, it's still important to include that. One of the things I love to do in this opportunity that I took to share my team's successes is to call out specific team members as well around what it is that they contributed to different projects, so they can also get the opportunity to gain visibility with whomever it is that I'm reaching out to with the information about my team's successes in addition to my own. If it's just you, you can still share that in a way that is meaningful. Maybe it's not an email that you're sending out. Maybe it's a meeting that you ask your boss to be included in so you can share updates, and use this as an opportunity to get feedback from the broader leadership team around the ways that your team can be contributing. So there are different ways to kind of navigate. How do I figure out exactly how I can share some of those successes so people can really understand what it is that my team and I are able to accomplish and how we're contributing value to the organization? Please do not shy away from this. This is so important. You're not going to get gold stars and just be automatically promoted unless your company is really amazing and you have a really good champion in your boss that is absolutely going to do that for you. I think even still, for you to share these successes, especially if you can try to do it cross-functionally, which is one of the corporate terms I love to hate. But if you can do that, you can potentially then start to identify more sponsors, which is actually the fourth step. So really building sponsors. What I mean by that are senior leaders who have influence, who have credibility in the company, ideally from other departments as well as your own potentially. And you don't even necessarily need them to be within your department. You just need them to have some sort of influence in the conversations that you are not in, but your boss is in, or your boss's boss is in, where they can be advocating on your behalf. They might put your name in the ring for a new role. They might put your name in for this project that is going to be really critical to the success of the company. And the way that you build these sponsors is by having relationships with people outside of your department typically, but even within your department, really build relationships. Don't go in just with the idea, I'm just going to tell them what we're working on and check in with them if there's anything that they need. Get to know them. Have them get to know you a little bit. Have them understand your aspirations. The more you can start to share what it is that you're trying to accomplish, the more these champions and specifically sponsors can advocate on your behalf. Again, in the rooms that you're not in the meetings that you're not in. This is so important for your success and for your ability to be considered for those promotions. And when you put your hat in the ring, that you have the support that you need for you to attain the roles that you want as well. The fourth step is then really advocating for yourself. And this would be ahead of the review cycle, possibly the beginning of the year. That is why I'm doing this video at this time in the year. It is literally January 4th as I'm recording this video, and I'm doing it because I'm thinking of you and what it is that you're going to want to accomplish this year for yourself. So many of the women that I support and talk to me about wanting to be promoted, wanting to earn that raise, and struggling with figuring out exactly how to go about doing that. When is the right time to have these conversations? So when it comes to advocating for yourself, if your review cycle is done, or if you're at the end stages of the review cycle, depending on their corporate calendar and all these different factors, still take the opportunity to advocate for what it is that you want. And it's really important to be clear about what it is that you're asking for. I mentioned this again in the 4 steps to asking for what you want video, but be very explicit in understanding your own want. So when you go to express it, you're not minimizing it in some way. So are you asking for a specific percentage raise to your current salary, or are you asking for a specific promotion to a title or a different even department or role? What is it rather that you are wanting to ask for? Be very clear about that for yourself, so when you go to express it, it is clear to the person that is receiving it as well. So you can express what it is that you want in a way that the company understands it's not just a purely selfish thing. And let's be real, we want to be promoted, we want to earn raises because it supports our own aspirations, our personal goals in our life, the kind of lifestyle that we want to have. So there is I don't want to call it selfish, but there is a true need that is outside of the company's success, because realistically, this is something that I don't know if I've mentioned in any of my videos yet, but companies are not loyal to you. Most companies would never admit this, but loyalty only goes one way. And if you've ever been laid off from a role, you understand this to be true. They are only loyal to the shareholders themselves, who's currently at the company, whoever it is that they're supporting, and whatever direction the company is going in. If you being there or you being promoted or getting that raise is not going to serve them, they are not going to be loyal to you necessarily. And that might sound super cynical, but it has been my experience in 20 years in corporate, 15 years in leadership roles. That's been my experience, and every single woman that I've talked to and the women that I support in my coaching, similar experiences that they've echoed in the stories that they've shared with me as well. So be mindful of the fact that the loyalty only goes one way, and be explicit about what it is that you are asking for. So talk about wanting to have forward momentum. You want to grow with the company. You want to make sure that your team and the company is successful, and just your aspirations for your career growth. Where do you want it to go in the next 1 to 5 years? What is it that you want to communicate? And I would be careful if you're looking for a more immediate promotion. I wouldn't necessarily lay out a 5-year plan, because they can be like, okay, within the next 5 years, we will promote you to whatever, something. So be clear about your timeline. If you're really looking for a promotion and you've been working your butt off, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, to earn that raise or promotion, then you want to be explicit about the timeline too. And then ask for exactly what they need from you in order to earn that raise or promotion. What are you going to be looking for? What can I be doing more of? What would you want me to be doing differently? And when you're having this conversation, I would also encourage you not to just be focusing on what they are going to tell you. Ideally, you have some ideas about how you can improve your team, the department, what you can contribute, projects that you can take on that are going to add value, remove some of the stress from your boss, potentially even go in with some ideas of what you can be doing and what you want to start moving towards. And I'll touch on this in one of the caveats. You don't necessarily want to take on more responsibility before that's been acknowledged in some way, that you're going to be compensated for it in some way. I'll get back to that one. So that's pretty much it. Those 5 steps are all but going to guarantee that you're going to get a raise or promotion, unless you're honestly at the wrong company. And I'll get into that in a minute. So first, just doing a quick review, knowing your audience, who's going to make the decision, who needs to be convinced that that is the right decision, what other factors within the company or organization, the policies, the practices are going to impact your ability to get that promotion or raise. Asking for really actionable feedback is step 2. So making sure that you're not just getting that vague personality-based feedback that is so unhelpful and doesn't allow you to move towards the goals that you have for yourself. So whether it's with projects and not purely at the review cycle, because that typically is only once a year, possibly twice a year. It's definitely not more often than that it's given a lot of consideration. So asking for actionable feedback, share your successes publicly. Don't wait for somebody else to call you out and share your successes. If you have a boss that does that for you, that is amazing. I would even still encourage you to do that for yourself, for your team, if you're running a team, so that you can help others see, outside of even your immediate department, your immediate team, what is going on, what are the ways that you're having an impact and adding value. Identify sponsors. Again, these are people who have influence and have credibility, who can speak on your behalf and advocate for you to get that role, that raise, that even bonus, potentially what spot bonuses or something that can be really helpful at times if you're looking to increase your compensation, but the budget's not fully there for a salary raise or whatever other circumstances might prevent the salary raise. Spot bonuses can be really helpful too. Advocate for yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to do that. Don't wait for someone to just acknowledge what you're doing and say, here you go, here's a raise or a promotion on a silver platter, because again, from my experience, the women I support, that doesn't typically happen. Women are not promoted based on potential. They're promoted when they prove themselves. So going back to even sharing the successes, it's almost like you're proving yourself by sharing the things you're already doing. You're not going beyond what you're already contributing, which is probably above what you need to already, especially if you are someone who takes great pride in what you do. You're probably a bit of a perfectionist, so you're working really, really hard and truly adding value, and you need this to be acknowledged. So this is one of the ways that you can do that. So those are the 5 steps. Here are the caveats that I want you to look out for. If any of these ring true for you, run in the other direction. Start looking for other opportunities. Work your network. Talk to people that you know. Let them know what you're looking for. And it may not be immediate because things don't move as quickly as we ever want, right? And depending on the economy and the industry and the role that you're looking for, it can be difficult and it might take time. But then you know you don't need to waste your time at your current company spinning your wheels, working your butt off even harder just to try to get that raise or promotion. So if you ask for what exactly is required for you to get to that next level, this is the first caveat, and they're very vague about what exactly that is. It's like, well, we got to figure that out, or, well, I'm not sure, I'll have to get back to you, and you never hear from them. Even when you follow up, they can't really tell you exactly what it will take. That is a major red flag that you don't want to overlook. That to me indicates very clearly that you're not in consideration for a raise or promotion in the immediate future. So depending on your goals and how long you're willing to wait and have already waited, then I would encourage you to be thoughtful about that. And if they are giving you just purely vague responses and can't explicitly tell you, these are the things I need to see from you in order for you to be promoted or earn that raise, don't waste your time. The second red flag or caveat is changing expectations. So if they're vacillating and 1 week or 1 month they say one thing and then it quickly changes, and they don't stay consistent with what those expectations are, that is a huge red flag that you want to be mindful of, and not like sit around and wait and sit around and, again, put more effort in and work even harder to get to that next level when you're getting inconsistent feedback about their expectations, or their expectations are changing all the time. That's just not a good sign. The third is if you're observing any kind of unfair practices within the organization. So I'll give you an example of something I experienced. I was talking to a head of HR as well as my boss at the time, and talking about what will it take for me to get promoted to VP. And I was at a senior director level, and they couldn't tell me. They said, well, we're not sure. This is something we're actually working on defining. And not 2 weeks later, they actually promoted somebody else at the company before they indicated to me that they'd figured anything out. And for me, I knew what level I was operating at. And this is important for you to identify for yourself. If you feel you're already operating at that next level, you're working really hard, and you're really good at being strategic, connecting the dots, having the follow through that you need, delivering, having impact and adding value, and you're not being recognized for it, that is a big problem. And especially when there is unfair practices as to one person being told one thing and then all of a sudden something else happens, that's a red flag. Look for those kinds of signs within your company. Maybe it doesn't happen to you directly, but keep your ear to the ground. Understand what happens with promotions and raises. What are the factors that impact the people who you see have earned raises or have earned promotions? And sure, companies don't want people talking about salaries with each other, but let's be real. The gender pay gap is real, and there's also different factors that impact whether or not you're getting paid fairly for what you are owed. And that's a whole other video that I'm thinking about doing. But for now, just know if you're observing any kind of unfair practices within your company, that's a red flag that you should not overlook. The other thing that I've also experienced is if you have a new boss that comes in and they basically expect you to start from scratch. So if you're going to that boss and saying, hey, I was already talking to my previous boss about getting promoted within the next 3 months, 6 months, however long that time frame is, that you and your former boss had communicated, and this person basically tells you, well, I need to decide that for myself, and when I do, we can talk about it. No. That was one of the reasons I left one of the companies that I worked at. So don't let them waste your time. You deserve to earn that promotion or raise. You do not have to start over just because that boss is new. They should respect the fact that you've been at the company as long as you have. You've worked your butt off. You can share your successes with them. But if that's the kind of blanket statement they give you, do not waste your time. And the fifth caveat is really, really important. Also something I experienced. But if they ever ask you to take on more responsibility and tell you that we will, in the next review cycle, acknowledge that through an increase in your salary, do not do it. Get a commitment from them in writing, and ideally immediately increasing your salary if you're taking on a significant amount of responsibility beyond what you already possess. For me, it was taking on another department, and what they communicated to me and what ended up happening were two different things. Not something that I would allow to ever happen again, and I don't want that to happen to you. So if they're going to give you an additional department, if they're going to give you additional responsibilities that you feel really justify you earning more, don't be okay with them giving you the responsibility without acknowledging that in your compensation package immediately. You do not owe them anything. You do not owe them taking on more work, working nights and weekends, and trying to keep up with everything and not be compensated for it. That's not how it should work. You deserve to be compensated for the work that you do, especially if they are asking you to take on more responsibility. So if any of those red flags come up in your experience with the company that you're at, I would encourage you to start looking for other opportunities. I know that it's much easier said than done, and your time is important. Your commitment to the work that you do, your aspirations for your career, That's really important. You don't owe the company anything. Even if you just transferred departments, you took on a new role and you find out immediately that they're not going to support you in the way that you want and deserve, don't stand for that. You get to decide how you're treated and what you are and are not willing to put up with. So do not let those red flags just go unnoticed. Really be mindful about that and practice putting those 5 steps that I mentioned earlier into how you manage your day-to-day and how you operate so that you can move towards that raise or promotion. Don't be bashful about sharing your successes. That is so important. I would love to hear from you about your experience. If you put any of this into practice, how did it feel for you? What came up for you when you started celebrating your successes more publicly and sharing them more publicly? I know initially it can feel a little bit daunting or uncomfortable. You don't want to brag about yourself, but this is essential to you being successful. Again, I shared with you some of the research that is, again, just like blows my mind that there's so many blatant ways that women are discriminated against in the workforce. And I do know for a fact that that discrimination is escalated for women of color on top of everything else that I described. So do not allow people to take advantage of your hard work, your dedication, your time, your commitment. You deserve to earn that raise. You deserve to earn that promotion. You are likely working your butt off for it and you deserve it. So don't allow them to essentially step all over you and take advantage of your commitment, your work ethic, and what you're contributing, because somebody else will acknowledge that. Somebody else will give you that raise or promotion for it. It may, again, take time, but focus on moving towards what you want for yourself, and don't stay complacent in this place just because it's comfortable. You've been at the company for a bit. It's scary going out there and starting to look for jobs. I do know that for a lot of different industries, the interview processes are kind of insane right now. Months and months of interviews, if not 10 different interviews for a single role. So it won't be easy, but you deserve to get that raise or promotion. You deserve to have the life and career that you want. Do not sit back and let anybody else decide that for you. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Like I said, give me some comments around your experience with this. If there's anything else that you've experienced as far as discrimination as a woman in terms of gender biases that you've seen in the workplace and throughout your career, I would love to hear that from you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.